I hate you. Sometimes I wish I'd never even married you in the first place." Her words stung, but it wasn't the first time that I'd heard them. Our marriage had been rocky for months, and Claire had told me that on at least 2 separate occasions. I knew that things weren't looking good for us, but I still loved her, and I wanted to make things work. "Look," I said, pursing my lips as I choked back tears. "I know you don't mean that. Yeah, things have been turbulent between us lately, but that doesn't mean I've stopped caring about you." I glanced up, trying to meet her gaze, but she turned away the second I did. "Well, I have. I'm sorry, Jason, but I just don't love you anymore. I've known for a while. I couldn't bring myself to tell you that until now." I stared at her, stunned. She sounded so confident, so sure. I knew then that she really had thought long and hard about what she was going to say to me. This wasn't just some angry outburst. There was no going back from this. I stumbled backward, falling onto the couch. I stayed there, eyes glued to the floor. In that moment, I didn't feel sad or angry or bitter. Just numb. My whole world was crashing down, and I was powerless to stop it. "I want a divorce," Claire said, dropping a stack of papers onto the couch cushion beside me. "I'm sorry that it has to be like this, Jason. I really am. You're a great guy, and you deserve someone who truly cares about you. But that person isn't me." And with that, she left me all alone. I can't even begin to describe the amount of anguish that I felt. The woman that I loved more than anything apparently didn't care about me at all. It was a soul-crushing kind of torment that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. I was an absolute wreck for months, but I didn't let that deter me. I wanted to save my marriage, to tell Claire that I'd do better, to show her that I'd do better. And over the next couple of weeks, I tried my best. I bought her flowers and gift cards to all her favorite places. I cooked expensive meals for her. I shouldered the entire load of the housework. But in my efforts, I failed to realize one crucial concept. You can't buy someone's love. After 2 months of fruitless displays of affection, it was clear that the divorce was still moving forward. By then, I had thrown in the towel. There was no point in trying anymore if I was going to be shot down without further consideration. Claire told me that she was moving back in with her parents after the divorce was finalized. I had inherited our home at a fairly young age. My mom was killed by a drunk driver when I was 19, and my dad passed a few years later from an overdose. Without Claire, the house felt so empty. I didn't understand it when it happened, but the first night without her, I cried. All the emotions that I'd been forcing down rocketed to the surface all at once, and I couldn't contain them any longer. Though I was a 34-year-old man, I bawled like a newborn baby. The pain I felt that night was more intense than anything I'd ever experienced before. It was a raw, emotional kind of agony, the kind that I hadn't felt since Claire had hit me with the news. I'm not proud to admit that I gave in to my demons that night. I slunk to my bedroom closet, an internal war raging within me. Part of me knew that I'd reach that point eventually, that I was just keeping it together for Claire. On the other hand, another part of me was ashamed. I'd made a promise to myself. But none of that mattered anymore. I needed something strong to take the pain away, and I had just the stuff. So I rummaged through my closet, tossing aside wrinkled clothes and shoe boxes until I found what I'd been searching for: the bottle of pain pills that I'd held onto after a minor surgery. I took a deep breath. The longer I stood there, staring at that little orange bottle, the clearer my decision became. I was really going through with it. I popped the lid, dumping the contents of the container into my palm. I was expecting to find 2 white tablets sitting in my hand, but instead, I was greeted by a scrunched up, torn piece of loose leaf paper. My heart fluttered. Had Claire found my stash? Was that why she'd left? My eyes grew wide as I unfolded the page and began to read. Jay, I'm sorry. Please believe me when I say that I still love you more than anything. I'm writing this because they're watching. There's cameras all over the house. Don't let on that you know. Come to this address. That's where I'll be. Don't look up how to get there. They have access to your phone. Love, Claire. My heart nearly exploded out of my chest with elation. I couldn't believe my eyes. There it was, clear as day. Claire did love me. But then, a sudden wave of dread blanketed that initial burst of joy. I was being watched? I had so many questions. Who had installed the cameras? Where were they? How did they get into my house? And most importantly, what did they want with me and Claire? My mind raced with possibilities. My head grew hazy, and I felt weak. I trudged out of the closet and sat on the edge of the bed. Though I was woozy, I knew that I had to pull myself together. Claire had left me an address, one that was close by. Once that thought crossed my mind, I was filled with a newfound ambition. I was going to get my wife back, no matter the cost. I straightened up and began to put on my shoes, exuding a confidence that I hadn't felt in a long time. But then I remembered. The cameras. Were they still watching me? I decided that I couldn't risk finding out. Not if these people had Claire. I pretended to fumble with my left shoe, struggling to tie the laces. After a third failed attempt, I took the shoe off and tossed it on the ground. I kicked the other one across the room, then forced out a tear, burying my face in my pillow. As I feigned sobs, I racked my brain for a tentative plan. And then it came to me. I sat up and wiped my eyes, pausing for a moment before grabbing my phone. I Google searched a nearby Chinese restaurant's dining hours, already well aware that they had plenty of time before closing. It was all just a ploy. The restaurant was close to the address that Claire had given me. If there really were cameras in my home, then there was a good chance that my car had been bugged too. And that wasn't a risk that I wasn't willing to take. I was a bundle of nerves the whole drive there. My head jerked at the slightest movement, and my eyes were constantly scanning for anything out of the ordinary. It felt like I was being watched, like everyone was onto me. No one was safe from my scrutiny. Logically, I realized how ridiculous that was. The old man walking his Pomeranian didn't have anything to do with Claire's disappearance. I knew that, yet I still couldn't help it, which is why those 10 paranoid minutes felt like some of the longest of my entire life. I was barely keeping it together by the time I pulled into the driveway of the rundown house. The property was on the bad side of town. Peeling paint, overgrown yards, and cracked windows were staples of most homes on the block. Normally, I wouldn't feel safe enough to venture there, but at that moment, I couldn't care less. I was going to get my wife back if it was the last thing I did. I parked on the street and stomped up the driveway, long grass biting at my ankles. I approached the door and knocked, then waited as the breath hitched in my throat. No answer. That left me with a conundrum. Had Claire written down the wrong address? What if she wasn't there anymore? Was I just supposed to let myself in? I didn't have time to come up with an answer before the door creaked open. My stomach twisted itself into knots. No one was there. Just the inky black maw of the open doorway, ushering me inside. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what I was going to do next. I knew how stupid it was. Walking into a random dark house in a bad area was just asking to end up in a body bag. But I had come this far. If Claire was in there, I had to find out. I stepped inside, blood pounding in my ears. The moment that my second foot landed on the dingy carpet, a light flicked on from somewhere deeper in the home. Claire, I called out, taking a step forward. Just then, a sinking feeling in my gut overwhelmed me with a sense of dread. Right as the word trap flitted across my mind, the door behind me slammed shut. I turned in time to catch sight of a burly man in a ski mask standing behind me. I barely had a chance to react before he restrained me, his meaty hands gripping my arms like a vice. "Who are you? What's going on here?" "Oh, Jason, you really haven't figured it out by now?" "I'm ashamed. I thought you were smarter than that." I turned back to the direction that I'd seen the light emanating from to find Claire sauntering toward me. The mischievous grin plastered across her lips sent a chill crawling up my spine. "You're okay? What is this? Tell me," I shouted, struggling against my captor. He didn't budge. Instead, he dug his nails into my flesh, and I stopped thrashing. Claire sighed. "You really don't get it, do you?" "No, I don't. Please enlighten me." "Fine. You want to play it the hard way? Take a look at this and tell me that you still don't know." Claire shoved her phone in my face. I immediately went pale when I saw the image on the screen. She grinned wider, her bright green eyes almost glowing in the darkness. "You understand now, don't you?" "How? How did you get that? It was a one-time thing. Not even my friends knew about her." "Oh, I'm aware," Claire purred, tracing a finger along my jawline. "They were blissfully ignorant of your debauchery. But I wasn't." With the last word, she raked a fingernail across my cheek, drawing blood. I winced at the pain. "But that's impossible. I hooked up with that girl 6 months ago. We didn't take any pictures. I deleted her number immediately afterward, and I didn't save the texts. I don't even remember her name. It was the only time I was unfaithful, I promise." "Oh, you don't have to promise me anything. I already know," Claire said, pacing back and forth like a hungry animal waiting to pounce. "You see, I've never really trusted you, so I had some of my associates follow your every move. You never cheated before then, but you almost did. I knew that you wouldn't hold out on Steve's bachelor trip in Vegas. It was the perfect opportunity, and I wasn't going to let you get away with it." I gulped, trembling at her revelation. How long have you been tracking me?" Claire giggled, a manic light gleaming in her eyes. "The whole time. Didn't you think it was strange that I never told you what I used to do for work? What I still do?" I couldn't even muster a response. All I could do was stare. "Well, now that you have a slightly better idea, I'll tell you what's going to happen. I am going to make your life a living hell. I'm going to ruin you. I'll take your job, your car, your house, all of it. Not in the literal sense, mind you, but you will lose everything you hold dear at my hand. And after all that, when the only thing you have left is your sanity, I'm going to take that too." My heart dropped into my toes, and I began to hyperventilate. "You can't do this. I won't let you. I'll call the cops." I won't do that," Claire cooed, her face mere inches from mine. "Because if you do, I'll expedite the process. And let's face it, even if you did run to the police, they wouldn't believe you anyway. It really is a shame. I was willing to spend the rest of my life playing the role of your spouse, but you crossed me, and now you'll pay for it." I wanted to fight, to shout, to scream at her that this was overkill, but every time I tried, the words died on my lips. Before I could form a coherent sentence, Claire turned to the door and opened it. The man restraining me shoved me outside, and I stumbled onto the pavement, still dazed from the whole interaction. "Bye-bye, sweetie. I'll see you real soon," Claire said, blowing me a kiss as the door creaked shut. It's been 4 days since then. I quickly found out that my ex-wife wasn't lying. My tires have been slashed. My home has been burglarized. And I've been suspended from work without pay, pending an investigation about some deep fakes that my employer received. I'm scared for my life. I don't know what to do. And things just got worse, because yesterday morning I received a text from a random number. What I saw when I opened that message made me sick to my stomach. It showed my sister bound to a chair, gagged, and blindfolded. A knife gleamed in the forefront of the photo. I could barely bring myself to read the words below it through my tears. Leave one of your fingers on your doorstep by 9 p.m. tomorrow, or we'll send you one of hers. This has been going on for months. My husband and our next-door neighbor have always been a bit closer than I would have liked. But lately, it's been ridiculous. I'm talking hours over there almost nightly. I know how it looks, and I know how stupid that probably makes me seem for not kicking his ass to the curb already. But just hear me out. Travis has a big heart. That's one of the main reasons that I started dating him in the first place. He always prioritizes other people's needs over his own. That's why when Sophie, the girl living alone next door, asked for his help fixing a leaky faucet, I wasn't surprised when Travis immediately offered to lend a hand. He's a plumber, so I didn't find it off-putting at first. But then she started asking for more. She needed help mowing the lawn, unclogging her drain, cleaning out her gutters. Heck, she even asked him to help her paint the walls the other day. That's what led to our first argument in months. Okay, I know it looks bad, but I'm just helping her with a few things around the house. Babe, I would never do anything with Sophie. You know that. I clenched my fists and gritted my teeth. Travis could tell that he'd screwed up. I know that. Travis, I don't know anything anymore. Lately, you've been spending more time with that scummy lot lizard than you have with your own wife. I have no idea what to believe now. Don't talk about her like that. Sophie isn't that type of girl, and she wouldn't try to sleep with me. She's a 20-year-old girl living by herself in a big house. Her parents are both dead, and she has no one else to ask. I'm 35, Lizzie. She's basically a child. I averted my gaze, a sudden feeling of guilt gnawing at me. I hadn't known that Sophie's parents had passed. Well, even if that is the case, I'm still not comfortable with you spending so much time over there alone with her. It makes me feel unwanted, I said, tears welling in my eyes. Travis sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. I'll start telling Sophie that she's going to have to find someone else to take care of this stuff. Looking back on it, I think you're right. She's becoming a bit too dependent on me. I dried my eyes, satisfied with his response. That's where it ends, right? This is the part where I proudly admit that Travis hasn't been over to that girl's house ever again, isn't it? Unfortunately, I can't say that. I caught him going over there the very next day. Travis's car was parked in the driveway after his ordinary work hours, but my husband was nowhere to be found, which could only mean one thing. I was so pissed that I threw a vase against the wall, like Peyton Manning hurling a football to a wide receiver. In that moment, I didn't care about the mess. I just knew that Travis was cheating on me, and I was hell-bent on proving it. I stomped over to Sophie's house, ready to give both of them a piece of my mind. I raised my fist to pound on the door, but something stopped me. It was already cracked open. That only infuriated me even more. They had been so eager to go at it that they hadn't even shut the front door all the way. I pushed it open, inviting myself in. I was trespassing, but I couldn't care less. If Sophie didn't want me in her home, she shouldn't have been screwing my husband. I was seeing red, prepared to slap the pair of them into oblivion, when I paused, my brows furrowing. The living room was so strange. It was void of any furniture. No television set, no couches, no armchairs. Nothing. Just an empty room. My stomach began to churn, and suddenly, I didn't feel so angry anymore. Travis, I whimpered, my voice weak and brittle. I began to walk toward what I assumed was the bedroom, ready to scold my husband and get the hell out of there. But that's when I heard it. Some kind of strange music was emanating from one of the back rooms. an odd sort of rhythmic chanting. My heart jackhammered against my ribcage. I didn't know what I was about to walk into. The whole thing felt wrong. I crept up to the door and put my ear against it, listening intently. I was met with a dizzying clash of music, wet squelching and whispers. I couldn't make out anything. It all sounded garbled. My breath hitched in my throat as I clutched the doorknob. I had to do this. I had to know what was going on between those two. What I saw when I peeked through the crack in that door will haunt me for the rest of my life. Sophie and Travis were standing with their backs to me as a speaker blasted some kind of Gregorian chant. Their hands were stained red, painting pentagrams and an assortment of glyphs that I didn't recognize onto the walls. And they weren't getting the paint from a tin. In the center of the room, leaking crimson onto a plastic sheet, lay the bottom half of a human corpse. I watched, frozen in horror, as Sophie mumbled under her breath, tracing one of the symbols. My heart dropped when I saw Travis turn to the cadaver, shove his hands inside, and grin at the deep red coloration dripping down his arms. His eyes, they were entirely black, like something sinister was wearing his flesh. That's what snapped me out of my trance. I didn't care if they heard me. My only concern was making it out of there alive. I bolted out of that house as fast as my legs would carry me. I pulled out my keys, jumped into my car, and floored it out of the neighborhood at lightning speed. And that leads me to where I am now. I stopped at my parents' house, and I've called the cops, but I haven't heard anything from them yet. However, I have heard from Travis. The text that I received has me terrified for my life. I know you saw us. I hope you liked it, sweetheart. We're almost out of paint, but don't worry. I know where to find more. I was devastated when Dad died. I know it's cliché, but he was the best parent that I could have asked for. Though his health had been declining for a while, and we knew that he didn't have long, it didn't make it any easier. I loved my father. I think that's part of what made the VHS tapes so shocking. I was visiting Mom, taking a bit of time off from work to grieve, when she revealed them to me. "Jeremy, I need to talk to you," she said, slowly taking a seat at the table. I rushed to help her into her chair, but she waved me off. Despite how bad her arthritis was, she was adamant that she was still just as lithe and nimble as a 19-year-old girl. "Is something wrong? It sounds serious," I said, once she'd had a chance to adjust herself. Mom's expression seemed bleaker than usual, grim even. She hadn't been the same after Dad's passing, but this was something else, something darker. "Well, not exactly. Your father asked me to do this. He made me promise that if I outlived him, I was to give you these tapes. If it was up to me, I would have thrown them out ages ago. No one needs to know what's on them. But this was his dying wish, and I have to respect that." Mom nodded to a box lying on the kitchen table. I glanced at it, then turned back to her, unsure of what to make of her revelation. Okay, it's nothing illegal, is it?" "Mom, this is kind of freaking me out." She stared at the table before her, her eyes a contemplating mix of emotions. I can't say for certain. A gnawing sense of unease began to twist my stomach into knots. "All right, if they're that bad, I'm sure you won't want to watch them with me. Can I borrow your VHS player for a few days? I'll bring it back when I'm done." "Yes, but Jeremy, please know before you watch those tapes that your father was a different man back then. I don't want those videos to change your perception of him." I took a deep breath, considering her words. I can't promise anything without seeing them, but I hope they don't. I didn't watch the VHS tapes for months. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. If they were really that shocking, I didn't know if I ever wanted to see them. Mom didn't bring it up again, but she seemed different after that day. Every time she looked at me, I could see shame hiding beneath her gaze. I felt sorry for her. This wasn't her fault. Now, I don't know how to feel. After half a year, I had completely forgotten about them. The tapes sat on my bookshelf gathering dust, blending in with the fixtures in the room. It was my girlfriend who reminded me that they were even there. Jay, why do you have a box of VHS tapes? Have you been watching naughty videos behind my back? She huffed, crossing her arms. What? No, I haven't even seen those yet. I got them from my dad when he passed. Emma's look of suspicion melted away as her cheeks flushed with color. I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have brought it up if I'd known. Do you want to watch them together? I know this has been really tough for you, and I want to support you any way that I can. I mulled it over for a moment before making my decision. Thanks for the offer. I really appreciate you being here for me, but I think this is something that I need to do alone. Emma pursed her lips and nodded before pulling me into a warm embrace. I watched the tapes that night. I decided that I'd been putting it off for long enough. Best to get it over with, right? It took longer than I'd like to admit to get the VHS player set up. It wasn't difficult, but technology and I do not see eye to eye. I took a deep breath as I popped in the first tape, sank into my sofa, and pressed play on the remote. The video began with a pitch-black screen. A faint rustling followed before Dad came into frame, his face too close to the camera. He placed his camcorder down before backing away. This is trial number 1. Jeremy, if you're watching, then I'm probably not around anymore. I don't think anyone is going to believe this. Hell, I don't even believe it myself. But I think I've caught my big break. If I'm right, then I may have found the cure for death. That's right, he grinned. I think I've discovered the compound for immortality. Even through the poor quality, I could see a manic gleam in my father's eyes. This man wasn't the same one who raised me. He couldn't be. Dad worked in medicine, but he had never uttered a peep about any of this. And that expression, I barely recognized him. Dad stepped off screen for a moment, and my heart dropped. Behind him, strapped to an operating table, was a child. It was me. I was unconscious in my parents' basement, blissfully unaware of what my father was doing. I leaned forward, horrified, yet morbidly curious. Dad walked back into frame, wielding a syringe filled with a liquid blacker than night. It was so dark that it seemed to consume the light surrounding it. Here it is, my magnum opus. If my theory is correct, this compound should have the ability to regenerate cells. In short, it should eliminate the possibility of death by natural causes. Cells will no longer wither away. In other words, the body will not age past maturity. I pray that this works. My heart hammered in my chest as Dad plunged the needle into my arm. Almost immediately afterward, my body began to writhe and convulse on the operating table. Dad's face dropped. He clearly hadn't anticipated that. The convulsions stopped as quickly as they began, much to his relief. But then my eyes shot open. They were completely black. A deep, inhuman cackling erupted from my lips. Dad went pale as a ghost. "Thank you," I said in a voice that was not my own. "You have given me a vessel, foolish human." The table shook violently, my arms and legs flailing in their constraints. I continued to cackle in that disturbing bellow as Dad watched helplessly. "I hope you know what you've done. This child will never be rid of me. Never. I may lie dormant for years, waiting until the time is right. But know that you have sealed his fate." Then the recording cut off. I stared at the blank screen, unable to comprehend what I had just witnessed. That was impossible. It had to be a skit or a fabrication. I couldn't accept that what I had just seen was real. I had to know the truth. I ejected the first tape from the VHS player and replaced it with the second. I watched for hours. Every tape afterward was a near replica of the one before it. Instead of trying to find the serum for immortality, Dad was attempting to cure me of my affliction. Each video played out the same way. He would explain what the drug was, why it was supposedly going to work, and my body would writhe on the table. The demon, or whatever ungodly creature that was, would return and mock my father. Then the video would end. By the time I reached the last tape, my hope was wearing thin. Dad had failed dozens of times. Countless different injections had no effect in reversing the damage. My breath hitched in my throat as I pressed play on the final video. Jeremy, I'm sorry. I'm all out of ideas. What began as an experiment born out of love quickly soured into a curse that you have to bear. I never should have tried this. The guilt of my actions is eating me alive. He took a moment to wipe away the tears welling in his eyes. I don't know what else to do. I've been trying to fix my mistake for 12 years. You're going off to college in a few days, and without you living under my roof, I won't be able to conduct these experiments any longer. I'm sorry, son. I failed you. That was it. The video cut to black, and I was left to sit there and think about what I had just seen. It's been 4 months since then. Over the past week, I've been blacking out. Huge chunks of my day have been disappearing from my memory without a trace. I'm not sure what exactly is going on, but I think it's related to Dad's experiments. I don't know what it wants with me, but I'm terrified, because I think that thing from the tapes has finally awakened.